I mean is it's the launch of our 2019 NFL draft game. I practiced it with a friend. We got a board set up. I even got this thing live streamed on Google Hangouts right now as we speak. The 1-5 New York Giants are on the clock, and I think that's fair considering Brian Bayless is a Giants fan, considering he helped us program the game, and the Giants are the only 1-5 team in the league. So I think it's fair that they should be on the clock first to start things off because they were 1-5 after the Thursday night loss to the Eagles. And while I would love to give them Jonah Williams, I think he's the smartest pick they can make. Can maintain blocks well on tape for Alabama. Great tackle. Probably the most complete tackle in this class by leaps and bounds. The player I would take at number 1. I just feel like the Giants are going to oust Eli because they had an opportunity to do it last year. They passed on Darnold. With way Hawk and Herbert have been playing, I feel like one of them, the Giants are going to out jettison Eli and take one of them at number 1. I feel like that's the direction they're going to head in, Joey. It's not that I don't think that's the direction they should head in. I think that's the direction they will head in as a franchise. So I'm going to let you pick the first player here, and we'll do a Giants draft evolution outlook here on Draft Utopia to begin the show, because this is a tough decision. This is the toughest decision the Giants are going to have to make, especially when you have defensive studs like Bosa and Oliver on the board, but you're loaded on defense. You need offense more to protect Eli.
Yeah, and I'm looking at you got to look at Pat Shermer's offense and what they're trying to do. They are literally at this point, by drafting Barkley, they're saying, we're going to get back to our running back by drafting Barkley. And that's admirable. And it's working. Barkley has, every week, Barkley has improved. It's not even close. Last week, he had his best game as a pro. And that wasn't even close. I mean, he just completely dominated. So, what I'm looking at is you have Davis Webb in the background.
Actually, the Giants cut Davis Webb. Kyle Lauletta is the backup now.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they cut Davis Webb in the preseason. So they have a 4th-round quarterback as their backup. And if you believe Herbert or Locke's deep ball accuracy is going to be better than whatever Lauletta's ceiling is, you have to take a quarterback at number 1, period. You don't have – there's no and ifs or buts. That's the nature of the beast. Plus, Justin Herbert's actually surpassed Locke. Yesterday, Oregon beat Washington 30-27. Locke had no turnovers against the Washington Huskies defense with Byron Murphy and Taylor Rapp. And Drew Lock just got absolutely incinerated versus Alabama. 13 for 26, 7 hurries, 4 sacks, interception, a forced fumble. Yeah, Herbert was underwhelming. 18 for 32, but 18 for 32 is better than 13 for 26. 18 for 32 versus Washington is basically the same as 13 for 26 versus Bama. But Herbert avoided turnovers and won. Locke didn't avoid turnovers and lost. So Herbert is now the undisputed QB1. It's like, this is their resume. Herbert's resume. I posted Herbert's tape versus Cal last week. And for the past 3 weeks, every draftnik in the country has been saying Herbert's tape's been better all along, but he didn't have the stats or the body of work. Now he has the body of work, even if he doesn't have the stats. His body of work, as well as his tape, just surpasses Drew Lock to the point where he's the undisputed QB1. I know I have Herbert at number 12 on this draft game, but when we update things in November, Herbert's probably going to be in the top 10, let alone potentially the top 5, assuming the Giants hold on. It's very early in the draft process. A lot can change, and I don't think this class has a quarterback that warrants a top 10 spot on the draft game at this point in the process. But I thought heading into this week, Locke and Herbert would be 1A, 1B, both 90 grades on our SWAT reports. Okay, Herbert has now officially separated himself from Locke. So I feel like the Giants are going to take Justin Herbert in this context, in this situation. If he beat out Rosen and Darnold for Pac-12 QB, academic QB of the year, that shows how smart he is. And I just feel like the Giants can't pass on that. Even if they sit Herbert for a year, like they did with Eli, with Warner, I feel like the Giants do not have the luxury to pass on that as an organization.
Yeah, and while you're talking, I'm trying to look up some information, and the only
because this is a tough decision. You have to do research on this.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I'm getting from Draft Utopia and Walter Football is pop-up ads that try to get you to do stuff.
And we don't put pop-up ads on our draft game because we want people to be addicted to our draft game like cocaine. Yet we want to clutter our mock drafts with pop-up ads. That's why Joey says I'm an asshole every week. It's like we're mocking the Athletic with our draft game, but we're still cluttering our mock drafts with pop-up ads. That's basically why Joey and everyone who hates our pop-up ads.
You guys have virus ads popping up on your shit, and it is keeping me from my very valuable research. Okay, and my research is extremely important because
it's like Walter has Walterware and I have ransomware, and our viruses are competing with each other like contestants on Dancing with the Stars.
No, this is actually the exact same one. So I mean, you're not even competing with each other at this point. You are literally teaming up here to keep me from my research, because Justin Herbert right now is the guy I'm not 100% sold on. I wasn't 100% sold on Darnold. Herbert plays a lot like Darnold did, but at the same time, I don't think the Giants have much of a choice at this point.
They can always get a tackle in the next draft.
Because you guys can't seem to get your shit together when it comes to the virus spots here.
Or we can just give the Giants a virus quarterback and Drew Lock. If Will Grier was on the draft game, I would draft him at #1 just to spite the Giants because I'm that butthurt about Super Bowl 42. But the logical decision is to give the Giants Justin Herbert. That's the most logical and professional decision an organization can make at this point, especially the Giants. It's not that Lauletta sucks. It's just Herbert's ceiling is greater. And no matter what Lauletta does, Herbert or Lock's ceiling will be greater, even if they're raw. Even if they begin the year as a third stringer like Goff and work their way into the lineup down the road by the end of the rookie season, it's a smarter decision long term. And I don't think the Giants are in a situation where they can pass on that at #1 for a second year in a row. Especially when Odell's bitching about Eli, Barkley's bitching about Eli, Nate Solder's bitching about Eli, and Ingram. They're all teaming up like the cast of The Hangover, trying to give Zach Galifianakis, a.k.a. Eli, an intervention that will cost him his job as the starting quarterback. When that many offensive players want to gang up on you like Zach Galifianakis in The Hangover 3 and give you an intervention, you have to draft a new quarterback, period.
Well, my theory is, my thoughts are a little bit simpler than that, and that is Eli isn't doing much more than throwing checkdowns at this point.
And he has a career high in completion percentage, but that reinforces your point about the checkdowns. Please continue. Just wanted to throw that out there.
He's really simply not doing much. He is literally just there at this point. And he's not throwing the ball downfield. When he does, he's not throwing it with accuracy. I mean, he is, at this point, throw the ball within 10 yards and hope something happens. He is literally Colt McCoy.
As much as I'd love to say Eli Manning is a 2-time Super Bowl winner, he's a career high in completion percentage. He deserves to be a quarterback for another year because his offensive line sucks. The Giants can save anywhere from $11 to $19 million by cutting him, and they can draft their starting quarterback at #1 and throw him into the fire, or they can keep Eli for another year and groom the quarterback if they believe the rookie isn't ready. And that's a smart decision. If the rookie's not ready, groom him, let Eli play out his contract, let him retire, and then make the guy you draft #1 your starter, like the Giants did when they groomed Eli.
I think it's more likely they have Eli play out his contract because, I mean,
I'm sort of on the same boat, Joey.
You don't want to do that. The fact is, I have a feeling they're going to draft Herbert. I wouldn't.
I'd take Jonah, but I think from a business standpoint, they're going to take Herbert.
I wouldn't say I take that back. I wouldn't say I wouldn't draft Herbert. I will say I have a lot of reservations about Herbert that need more research. His turnovers are problematic, and that is a big issue for me. Always has been a big issue for me with any quarterback. You go to New York, you have a turnover problem, it gets cold, that ball gets hard, gets harder to throw. Guess what happens? You have a turnover problem before, you're definitely going to have a turnover problem now. That's what I'm waiting for Darnold when it gets cold with the Jets is, hey, these turnovers are going to be coming. And I have the same concerns about Herbert.
Like, as a fan, I feel like Jonah Williams is the player the Giants need to draft to win short term. However, if they want a long-term quarterback and a long-term piece to pair with Beckham and Barkley for the next 10 years and Ingram for the next decade, maybe next 15 years, they have to take a quarterback at one. So they have an offense in place for the next 10 years featuring Beckham, Ingram, the QB they draft at 1, and Barkley. You want a long-term offense that can push for this division on a year-by-year basis, you have to take a quarterback at number 1. From an organizational standpoint, from a business standpoint, you have to take a quarterback at 1. If you want to win now, like you did when you drafted Barkley, go ahead and take Jonah Williams at 1. Maybe Eli will put it together in a contract year and prove you wrong. But if you want to win long-term, you have to take a quarterback at 1. So the Giants, they're going to decide to take a QB even if it's not in the best interest of the team short-term. That's the Giant way. They're going to do that.
Here's the thing. The development.
They passed on Darnold. There's pressure from the fans, and there's too much pressure for them to ignore. I hope the Giants do the smart thing, but I feel like they're going to panic. Please, that's my concluding argument. Please make yours, and then we'll move on to number 2.
Yeah. Now, what does Violetta look like? How is his development coming? It's something I say every year. You draft a 2nd to 4th round quarterback, which is the second-tier quarterback in 28. That is pretty decent investment. It's not a 5th to 7. Those are pretty much throwaway. Let's see what happens picks. It is a 2nd to 4th rounder. Now, you tell me, how does that development look?
Yeah, honestly, my friend Kyle Taylor.
If Violetta's lighting it up in practice, against the practice squad, then you can say, okay, maybe we have an argument to take that offensive tackle.
And what my friend said is actually a good idea. My friend Kyle covers the high school page. He said if the Giants are 1-7 by week 8, play Lauletta the entire second half just to see if he's your quarterback of the future. Give up on this season. Let Lauletta play the rest of the year out. And if he screws up like Clausen did or Kaiser did, you take a quarterback at 1. Pretty straightforward. If he does well and shows he can lead the team down the road, you keep Eli and Lauletta for another year and you draft Jonah Williams. And I agree with that entirely to the core. I agree with that infinity %, even though that's not an actual percentage. I think that's the smartest thing the Giants can do as a team. And that's coming from the Patriots fan who is bitter about an 18-1 season. Whew.
Yeah, and that is a good argument. I mean, I can't argue that. Thing is, though, he's a Manning. Are you really going to say, hey, this Manning's going to sit down for the entire year?
Yeah, the other coach they had, the guy who looked like Dr. Robotnik, I can't remember his name. The Giants just fired him last year. I'm just screwing up royally here. Royally to the point where it's not even Ben McAdoo. That's his name. His name's Ben McAdoo. He had Josh Allen as QB1. His quarterback rankings were basically identical to Romero's, which is nothing at Ryan. It's just if you're a head coach and you're making business decisions, like you're consulting the GMs and your quarterback rankings are on par with Ryan's, that says a lot about why you should be a coach and not a scout. Just focus on coaching and let the scouts and GMs do their job for the team.
Yeah,
we're taking shots at McAdoo.
Quite a bit.
All right,
Yeah,
so
Herbert,
Herbert, lock in Herbert at 1 in the draft game and move on to San Francisco. All right, is that the final decision?
Yeah.
All right. Number 2. So Herbert's 12 on my board, but we're locking him at 1, and the 49ers are on the clock at number 2. The top 2 players on the board are Ed Oliver and Nick Bosa, and I am picking for San Francisco since I let Joey pick for the Giants. So here's the deal. Ed Oliver's the best player on the board, but you have 2 first-round defensive tackles still on your roster, and Buckner and the other guy out of Oregon who wasn't as awesome as Buckner, but still effective. And you have Solomon Thomas, and you need a second edge rusher next to Solomon Thomas. Nick Bosa can take pressure off of Solomon Thomas the way Joey Bosa can take pressure off of Melvin Ingram. Oliver's the better player, in my opinion, but Nick Bosa is the better scheme fit for the 49ers. And having Nick Bosa and Solomon Thomas practice against Joe Staley and Mike McGlinchey does wonders. It does wonders for your offensive line. It does wonders for your pass rushers. And it does wonders for your competition as far as offensive tackles and edge rushers goes. That's why you take Nick Bosa at number 2. I'm locking in Bosa at number 2, and there's nothing you can say or do to sway me into taking Ed Oliver. If you want to make a rebuttal, go ahead, but I'm locking in Ed Oliver at 2, and that puts the Colts on the clock at number 3 and makes this Ed Oliver pick for you a pretty much open and shut case, Joey.
Ed Oliver is obviously the best player in the draft, in my opinion. The Colts are terrible at drafting defense, and they're terrible at drafting offensive linemen. So they get one right every now and then, but they don't do it often.
Plus, a team with Andrew Luck at quarterback and Ed Oliver is the face of the defense is a team that can actually win Andrew Luck a Super Bowl down the road. Maybe not right away, but if you draft Ed Oliver, you get Ed Oliver. If you're the Colts, you get Ed Oliver. Andrew Luck's winning a Super Bowl. That's the bottom line.
At least you have a piece to build around the defense.
Like, even if he doesn't win a Super Bowl, if you get Andrew Luck, Ed Oliver, you're going to get to a Super Bowl at some point. You might not win it, but you're going to get to one at some point when Brady retires. It might be until Luck's in his 30s like Elway, but it'll happen.
You're going to be competitive if you draft Oliver. That is the thing. The big problem is it's like Gerald McCoy and Jameis Winston. Winston's the first quarterback in NFL history to have 4,000 yards a season in his first 3 seasons or something like that. Gerald McCoy's a beast. Tampa Bay's still sitting at bottom feeders. Okay? You look over. So I don't say they're going to win a Super Bowl. I don't think that's open and closed. But at the same time, the Colts haven't had a chance to build around anybody defensively. And they have not had a chance to really show what they can do with building a team because they have nothing to build around. So, Ed Oliver, the best defensive player, probably the best player overall in this draft, gives them something to build around and gives them a reason to actually draft defensive players.
Yeah, and we're on the Arizona Cardinals. They have the number 4 pick in the draft, and this is a really good team to outlook as well because the top 3 players in the draft game via Google Hangouts are number 3, Jonah Williams, offensive tackle, Alabama, can play either offensive tackle role. You could pair him with DJ Humphries at right tackle. You could go Devin White, number 4 player on the board. Arizona moved Hassan Reddick to Sam linebacker. They also moved Buchanan to weak side linebacker in their 4-3 defense. You need a middle linebacker, and there is absolutely no way in hell Devin White can be any worse than Kevin Minter. I know that's a red flag to the Cardinals front office, and that's going to be they might panic and say, you know what if Devin White's another Kevin Minter? We're not going to take him. They might panic, and I think that's why Devin White won't come off the board here at number 4. But number 5 on my board is Greedy Williams. He played at cornerback. He played at LSU just like Patrick Peterson. He played at LSU just like Morris Claiborne. LSU is a cornerback factory, and right now the number 2 corner next to Peterson is Jamar Taylor from the Browns. So I'm looking at these 3 guys. Jonah Williams, Bama. We can get him to replace Andre Smith at right tackle. I'm looking at Devin White as a middle linebacker. And I'm looking at Greedy Williams. And right now, Arizona at number 4, they've got 3 top 5 players still on the board, thanks to the Giants taking quarterback. And right now, the Cardinals GM, Khan, he's playing a game of 3-card Monty. And in order to win this game of 3-card Monty, he has to get Jonah Williams to be that other offensive tackle, that bookend for Josh Rosen. If he wants to get the most out of Rosen, he's going to have to get Jonah Williams as a bookend and let go of Andre Smith for cap space, keep the guards, keep Justin Pugh at right guard, keep Iupati at left guard. You'll have your center back from a season-ending injury next season. I mean, Evan Bohm got placed on IR, and Mason Cole got forced into the starting lineup. Mason Cole's actually done well so far, but you have an offensive line with Mason Cole, Iupati, and Justin Pugh at guard, and then you have Jonah Williams and DJ Humphries as your tackles, your bookend tackles. That's a pretty good offensive line for Josh Rosen, and Rosen will do better with that offensive line in year 2. I mean, I thought the Cardinals were going to put Pugh at right tackle and Andre Smith inside at guard, but they did the opposite, and that's hindered Josh Rosen's ability to make good decisions. Plus, he's going through those rookie struggles every QB does. So if you get Jonah Williams, Josh Rosen probably will make a massive leap. And if Fitzgerald retires, you need to have Jonah Williams so you can run the ball with David Johnson. So if Jonah Williams is my top player on the board, you really can't argue for him. And I'm going to pick Jonah Williams at number 4 since it's my pick. And I think that's probably the route you go as well. But if you want to make a case for White or Greedy Williams, you can. And if not, you can pick one of them with the Raiders at 5. Good luck.
Okay, Raiders at 5. Let's face it. John Gruden, most of those quarterbacks, the man is the defensive mind. I do believe that Drew Lock fits what the Raiders want to do. But at this point, I think Derek Carr still has time to redeem himself. So I'm going to go with what John Gruden really loves. I'm going to go defense. I'm going to go Christian Wilkins, Clemson, who is probably easily a top 5 talent. Easily a top 5 talent. And I'm going to go with him. He's going to re-energize this defense that really lost a lot when they lost a little match.
Yeah, John Gruden. Wilkins is 17 on my board. He's been a little bit underwhelming this season, but at the same time, his tape is outstanding. He was my number 1 defensive tackle heading into last year's draft, so I have no problem with the pick. But the Raiders fans, Raider Nation's going to boo that pick. I mean, when they come up to the podium in Tennessee and Goodell announces that the Raiders have taken Wilkins over Devin White and Greedy Williams, the Raiders fans are going to be pissed. It may end up being the correct decision, but it's going to feel like such a reach that Raider Nation's going to go on a tirade.
Well, they were pissed when they took Khalil Mack, too, and they were pretty happy with that selection at the end.
And then they were pissed at Gruden when he traded Khalil Mack away. See how we've managed to savagely torture the Raiders in one episode while bashing Gruden's process?
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if I mentioned this last week. I can't remember what I said week to week at the time. But the Raiders right now are dumping salary. They're moving to Vegas. Reports are right now they don't even have a place to play in Vegas. So they are dumping salary. They are dumping it quickly. Khalil Mack, they had a set amount that they could pay Mack. Mack wanted quarterback money. They weren't willing to pay it. They're moving. They need the money to move. They get rid of Mack. Derek Carr. Are they going to get rid of him? Most likely. Why? You can say he'll play, you can say this, you can say that, say all these different things. Even if he's a middle-of-the-road starter, he's still better than 16 other quarterbacks in the NFL. So why are you going to get rid of him? Salary. They need the salary to move. They still don't have a place to play. They need to find a place to play. They need to afford it. They're slashing salary. That means they have to take top players on the board, whether the fan base likes it or not. Fan base is going to be in Vegas. Okay? So they have to take guys that can be gritty, can be a little bit flashy, can get the win, because that's what is going to work for them in this term. And they're going to have to get rid of these guys who have high talent. It's like when every team moves. When a team moves, what do? They slash salary. Because they don't know what's coming. They don't know what the fan base is going to be like. They know nothing. Estimates can only get you so far. So that's something. That's really what they're doing right now. They're slashing salaries. Christian Wilkins is the right pick.
All right. The Atlanta Falcons are on the clock at number 6 in the draft. And with 2 top 5 players, I really want to move down with Atlanta because they need defensive tackle help. They need help at other positions. But they're in a situation where the top 3 players on the board are all corners. They're going to have to reach for someone. I honestly want to trade this pick to the Packers. I want to use the Packers, their 2 first-round picks. I want to sacrifice Lisa's 2 first-round picks to move up to number 6 and pick for Lisa's team. But I just got a message from Lisa saying that if I do that, she's going to waterboard me with cheeseheads. Like, she's that infuriated about losing to the Lions. I know last week one of the Lions admins posted a meme of Packers fans jerking it. So it's like Lisa's that upset. I can't let Lisa go on a killing spree like Rambo, even though Joey would love to see that. So I have to pick for Atlanta like a responsible professional.
With you, Chris. Only with you.
Oh, so you're cool with Lisa going on a killing spree if it means she's going to end my life like Al Pacino in Scarface and declare herself the CEO of Draft Utopia. Then you're all for it. But anyone else, you have to calm her down.
And I get the podcast. Yeah, I get the podcast, so.
You know, that's a fair point. You guys can work together like Scarface and Sosa to end me. That's a very fair point. A valid one, too.
It'd be the Draft Utopia Mafia.
Yeah, that's pretty badass. All right, so Atlanta's on the clock here. I'm going to have to go for this is a tough pick to make. I'm looking at Rashawn Gary. I'm going to go – Rashawn Gary's injured, though, so I feel like I'd upset Lisa if I took Rashawn Gary at 6 if he's injured. So I'm going to go with Raquan Davis out of Alabama. I know he's 13 on the board, but at this point, you know what? I should take Gary. If he's going to injure the Falcons, that's the best way to cheer up Lisa. Plus, if he's the best defensive tackle on the board. So if he's 10 on our board, let's just draft him and hope that he's a bust. Because if he's a bust, Lisa might spare me. All right, Rashawn Gary to Atlanta. That's what I did in my draft game the other day. It's tough. Atlanta at 6 is such a tough decision, especially if the top players on the board are all linebackers and corners. Because you don't want to draft someone. If you got Deion Jones, you can't draft his replacement, even if it's someone as awesome as Devin White, unless you trade Jones for another pick. If the Falcons want to go that route, they can. But you're going to have to trade Deion Jones before he demands a contract extension. And honestly, that actually isn't a bad idea. I mean, Deion Jones is awesome, but if you're in a position to draft Devin White, why not trade Deion Jones while its value's at an all-time high and get another first, maybe even second or third round pick and get Devin White and then another premium player? That's not a bad idea, but I don't think the Falcons are savage enough to go that route. Like, they're that invested in Deion Jones that they're not going to trade him for a high first-round pick. Like, they're not trading him unless they get another top 15 pick. That's just the bottom line. And when that's the bottom line, the Falcons aren't drafting his replacement, period. because he's done well with the team. He got them to the Super Bowl as a rookie. So he's not, and their defense is abysmal without him until he returns. So he's not going anywhere. Deion Jones is safe. Like, he's so safe that if you draw the sorry card and you're playing sorry with Deion Jones, you draw the sorry card, Deion Jones can just flip the game board and walk out of the Falcons locker room and they'll give him a pay raise. Like, that's how much leverage Deion Jones has over the Falcons at the moment. So, yeah, his job is safe, period. All right, who's up at 7? The number 7 pick in the draft belongs to the Houston Texans, and it is Joey's turn to pick here. I mean, honestly, you've got Devin White and Greedy Williams, 2 top 5 players, both on the board. The Texans drafted Cunningham, and they extended McKinley. And even though I'd love to see Devin White in Houston, I just don't think Houston's going to go that route. I think they'd probably take Greedy, or they'd take any of the highest corner on their board. Because if we have 3 corners in the top 7, whether it's DeAndre Baker, Julian Love, or Greedy, they're probably taking the best corner on the board and going O-line in round 2 if they've got 2 second-round picks, or they could use those picks to trade up. But Houston's on the board at 7. What do you want to do?
Well, I'm going to go and do something this is something Houston's done quite a bit. Houston has had some real problems at linebacker with injuries and everything else. So I'm going to go with LSU linebacker Devin White. The animalistic athleticism that he shows, huge upside. I mean, he does have some fundamental issues, but the upside there with all the injuries, durability concerns, they've had some suspensions over the last couple of years. He's one of those sideline to sideline linebackers that can take a little bit of pressure off of these big pass rushers. So they're not going to have to worry about, hey, I also have to guard all this far sideline because these guys back here may not be able to get there.
Yeah, and he has that attitude that Cushing had too. Like, he's not just has the athleticism. He doesn't just have better athleticism than Cushing. He also has the attitude that Cushing had that made him a great leader. Devin White has that attitude. I like Bernardrick McKinley. He's good, but he's not an elite middle linebacker. And you paid him elite middle linebacker money. So you better get him some help. Also, Zach Cunningham doesn't have the athleticism to be a long-term starter, and he's better suited in a depth role. I know Texans fans want to say, oh, we got 2 stud linebackers in the middle. You got rid of Cushing. You got a guy with less upside with Cushing. You're paying Cushing money, and you got a backup who is a second-round pick who you're hoping will pan out as a starter. Cunningham had problems with his athleticism coming out of Vanderbilt, and it still feels like he hasn't taken that leap to correct that. So I actually agree with Joey that Devin White is the smartest option, and I hope Houston comes to their senses, but they might panic and take a corner and draft on need. But I actually agree with you that Devin White is the smartest pick for the Texans at 7. And I know Texans fans are going to get upset about that, but this is our podcast. It's not a Texans fan podcast. So cover your ears, Texans fans, if you don't like what you hear. All right, Dallas is on the board at number 8, and there's a lot of corners on the board. Dallas has their pick from all the corners on the board, but they drafted Louisier. They've drafted some good players. They've got good linebackers. I kind of want to draft Drew Lock here, but I'm not going to do that because Dak Prescott, I feel like Dak Prescott's done a lot for this team, and he deserves an opportunity to right the ship. But this is a tough situation for me. So I'm going to go Raquan Davis here at 13. I know they need offense, but the only offensive player on the board is worth drafting in the first round is N'Keal Harry because he's a receiver out of Arizona State. But I'm not sure if he's worth it at number 8. He's the only first-round receiver on the entire board, but I have him at 16. So do you reach for him at 8 if he's the only first-rounder on your board? That's my question. As a friend, as a draft advisor, that is my question. If you only have one receiver on the board and he's 16 on your board, do you reach for him at 8 as far as draft strategy goes, or you take a defensive player or take the best defensive player on your board that fills a need? Because that's a very difficult situation for Stephen Jones to be in.
Here's the thing. Dallas has always said that, remember, they missed on Randy Moss. They said after that, if there is a supremely talented, physically talented wide receiver on the board, after that, they would not pass on him. But he has to be along that Randy Moss era. They had Des Bryant, they took him. Why? Because he was on that, at the time, he was on that Randy Moss level coming out. So,
well, and Keel Harry is 6'4", 213.
He's on that.
He ran a 4.37 40 time heading into the season. He's 6'4", 213. So he is freakishly athletic. He hasn't had the tape you want, but he's a better route runner than Sutton was. He has better technique than Cortland Sutton did. He doesn't have the route tree Sutton had, but his technique is better. And he has the athleticism. He has 4.37 speed. If he runs a 4.37 at the combine, and he's the only first-round receiver on your board, you're going to look like you passed on Randy Moss if you pass on him. That's the thing. So I feel
here's the thing. But here's the thing. You're looking at Dallas. If you're looking at those freakish athletes, you also have A.J. Brown and Anthony Johnson. That is 6'1", 230 with great twitchiness, big upside, athletic. And then you have Anthony Johnson, which we've gone over several times, 6'2", 215, extremely fast, pretty decent route runner. You know, so you may be looking at a situation where Dallas just goes best player available because they may be able to trade back in later and get one of those three that they may see on equal footing. But if they see one of them above the other by a wide margin, they just may take them.
So if I believe Anthony Johnson's missed 2 games with an injury, though, and Buffalo has lost their first game to Army because they didn't have Anthony Johnson. And the other thing to consider is A.J. Brown looked abysmal versus both Greedy Williams and Trevon Diggs, which actually says a lot about how this cornerback class is vastly superior to this receiver class by leaps and bounds and spades. So I'm going in Keel Harry here at 8 since it's my call. It's like if I really feel that strongly that Harry's the only receiver worthy of a first-round grade, I feel like Dallas has to draft him at 8 if he has that much freakish tools. Even though it might not be what the Cowboys do, I feel like if I feel that strongly about Harry, if I feel he's that much better than the rest of the receivers, he's separated himself. He's not a player you should draft in the top 10 based on his production and stats, but if he's been healthy and the other receivers haven't been healthy and he's your only round 1 guy, you may as well reach for him at 8 to make sure you get your receiver. If he's the guy you want, you better take him. You better put a ring. You better give him a contract. You better put a ring on that, and you better take him. I know that's a fear-mongering tactic. That's a panic tactic, and it's a tactic that would cost me my job if Harry busts. But if you're that certain Harry's going to deliver, you have to pick him at 8.
You're trying to be a 50-year-old woman. Stop it.
Jerry Jones wanted Johnny Manziel. He has the mindset of a 50-year-old woman when it comes to evaluating prospects. That's why Stephen Jones is drafting for the Cowboys now. So if you want to compare me to a 50-year-old woman, I'm going to take shots at Jerry Jones like Mrs. Doubtfire. And I know that's offensive to Robin Williams fans considering how Robin Williams tragically passed away a few years ago. So, all right. We're at pick number 9. All the corners are still on the board, but I feel like the Lions need a middle linebacker like Devin Bush more, and he went to Michigan. He's a hometown guy. Chris Robbins, a huge Lions fan, has been advocating for Devin Bush, calling him the best Michigan player he's seen in 10 years. So I also feel like Chris deserves to be punished for trolling the Packers. So maybe we should reach for Noah Fant at number 9 and upset at the Lions fans by having them pass on his favorite player. Or we can just give the Lions their favorite player so they're happy. It's your pick, though. It's your turn to pick. That's why I'm going to shut my mouth and listen to you.
Here's the thing that I'm looking at, and I look back at that first game. I cannot get this out of my head. The Lions secondary and their linebackers were all torched. Every one of them. By Sam Darnold. Darnold has not had a game like that since. Not even been close to a game like that since. That is things when it comes to the reasons they really haven't been winning is that defense.
Yeah, for the last 2 years, Mark Sub has been saying the Lions need another corner next to Darius Slay, and he's been pounding his table, criticizing the Lions, trolling them like CinemaSins, saying, get a corner next to Darius Slay and stop being pussies. And it's at the point where Mark actually looks like Steve Jobs for ranting about the Lions' abysmal secondary. That's how anemic this pass defense is. That you've made Mark Suba look like Steve Jobs. Congratulations, Detroit.
Well, here's the thing. Detroit needs a big-time cornerback, and they also need a big-time pass rusher. And Ziggy Ansah getting older. They don't know what his future is. So I'm looking at this situation, and I'm going to go with the big ball hawk, the guy who's going to get some takeaways. I'm going with Greedy Williams.
Wow. I just wanted to say real quickly that the Lions fan who there's no consensus QB1. Greedy is the consensus QB1, but the Lions fan, Robbins, he actually has DeAndre Baker as cornerback 1 over the Georgia cornerback over Williams. So congratulations. Good work upsetting the Lions fan base. I'm on the board at number 10, and I'm going to give the Jets the guy you passed that the Lions were denied because the Jets, they do need a receiver. They do need a tight end. They do need a running back. But unfortunately, there's no weapons for Darnold worth drafting at 10. And if the Jets are in this situation, we both know as fans are going to move out of this spot and trade down. But we're not doing trade downs in our draft game. So we're just going to give the Jets DeAndre Baker since Morris Claiborne's in a contract year. And they can just reload and put DeAndre Baker next to a veteran like Tremaine Johnson, and they could still put Baker next to young, experienced safeties like Marcus May and Jamal Adams. If you put DeAndre Baker next to Jamal Adams and Marcus May, this secondary goes from being good to lethal weapon good. Like that, this is already a potent secondary, but if you replace Morris Claiborne with DeAndre Baker, this becomes a lethal weapon good secondary. Like this secondary will be compared to the A-Team or the Lethal Weapon movies. So DeAndre Baker's going to the Jets at number 10 since he's the best player on the board, and there's not really a lineman or somebody else at a position of need worth taking at 10. Like the Jets, they either have to trade this pick or take the top player on the board regardless of need, because that's how bad it is. That's how much chaos they're in if they're in this situation at 10. Yep.
You look at 11.
You're at 11, and who's at 11? It's the Denver Broncos. So are we going to give the Broncos Drew Lock here, Romero's QB1, or are we going to torture them and pass on a quarterback like my friend did?
I'm not, because Case Keenum still has a pretty nice contract. They gave him a few-year deal.
And you can sit Lock. You don't have to rush him.
Well, I'm going with a little bit of a different way. Because here's the thing with Denver. Denver has a lot of holes. They have a lot of issues, and let's face it, I don't think anybody really realized how many they have. And Case Keenum hasn't been terrible. He hasn't been good, but he hasn't been terrible. So, he's still not a long-term answer. I want to give him somebody other than Drew Lock, but I'm also looking at
the only other QB on our board is Dwayne Haskins. Like, if you were in this situation, you'd probably consider giving them Will Grier, but he's not on the top 50, so it's like, you're like, fuck. Will Grier is not on the top 50.
If this was a stronger quarterback class, I would not even consider quarterback here. But it's not. So, as much as I want to, I don't want to. I'll go Drew Lock here because if you don't take the quarterback now, taking one later on just becomes a little bit problematic.
Plus, you're not guaranteed to go top 2 in 2019, even if you pass on a QB, because 2020 you're going to have Tua and Jake Fromm, and while those QBs are both superior to everyone in this class, they can both make 6 progressions. They can both push each other, like Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed for the #1 pick in 2020. They're not draft eligible this year, and Denver has to draft on a quarterback. Like, if they pass on a quarterback in the first round 2 years in a row, these fans are going to riot to the point where we think that Hubert is hijacking John Elway's office. That's how bad the rioting is going to get. That people are going to think Hubert from the 80s arcade games is hijacking John Elway's office. Like, that's how angry these Bronco fans are going to get if you pass on a quarterback 2 years in a row. You cannot let Hubert hijack John Elway's office.
Not Herbert, but Keenum hasn't been terrible, but he's not. He's been good enough. But who are you gonna take for your future in this draft if you don't get Locke? I look and I'm like, I don't know, and that's the thing. What's next?
Okay, Seattle's on the board at number 12, and thanks to Denver passing on Julian Love, like in the draft game my friend did, he passed on both quarterbacks, and what happened in the trial draft game is because he passed on a quarterback at 11, the Jaguars got Drew Lock at 19. I gave him Drew Lock because I thought the Jaguars, Tiger, Blaine Gabbert 2.0, and the Dolphins got Justin Herbert at 20 because the Jaguars passed on Justin Herbert, which was just criminal for me to do on Friday. But now the Jaguars get the spare Bortles another year. They don't have to worry about a quarterback competition for him, so that makes Bortles happy, and that does a lot. So, but the Seahawks get Julian Love to replace Richard Sherman. So Julian Love, best player on the board, replacement for Richard Sherman, number 7 player on the board, still there at 12. Seattle cannot pass on him. So, I mean, you look at number 13.
Julian Love's a player I love, so
there's really no objections to this pick. The Buffalo Bills are up at 13, and this is a tough situation for them because they need offensive line help more than anything else, and there's not a lineman worth taking. Josh Allen's a top edge on the board, but he's more of an outside linebacker than a defensive end. He's not really the best scheme fit. You could get a defensive lineman to replace Kyle Williams, but you drafted Harrison Phillips in the 3rd round, who I like. But the best fit is probably a defensive lineman or maybe cornerback. Maybe you get Trevon Diggs to replace Vonta Davis after getting rid of your other corner, who actually did somewhat decent. But you could also go Dex Lawrence here. This is your pick at 13, by the way, Joe. You could even draft Khalil Hodge or Anthony Johnson out of Buffalo. Go with the hometown route here at 13. It's your selection, though.
Yeah. I've got 3 people in mind right now. 2 of them are from Clemson, but I'm going to go with my 3rd option, and I know I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but Allen has not thrown the ball well. Let's face it, he doesn't have much in the way of a weapon. Because, let's face it, they suck. They know they suck at receiver. Corey Coleman, they took him. They got him for a week.
Yeah, it's like Anthony Johnson could end up biting Buffalo in the rear end, but if he pans out, he may also save Josh Allen's career. So it's like... Plus, it's a hometown pick. It's kind of exciting to make a hometown pick for the Bills.
A big-time playmaker for a big-time arm, I'm going Anthony Johnson, Buffalo.
That is Anthony Littman Johnson.
Well-rounded overall.
That's his middle name, Littman. But, yeah, I knew you were going to make that pick, and I love the pick. I know he's been injured this year, but I still think he has first-round tape. Even with his injuries, even with his lack of stats from his junior year. Like, his junior tape was so good that I feel like it overlaps some of his bad lapses and bad senior tape so far. Because he was unselfish. He still blocked for teammates even when they were running the ball or even when they wanted to throw to other targets. He was still willing to do other work for teammates to pick up some of the slack. And if Tyree Jackson looks like Akili Smith without Anthony Johnson, that says more about Johnson's game than it does Tyree Jackson's. Because Tyree Jackson looked like Akili Smith without Anthony Johnson. That says more about Johnson than it does Tyree Jackson. And that's what Joey and I are trying to get at. Anything you'd like to...
So, this is the neatest pick. I mean, right now, like, Allen has tremendous upside, but I've seen him when he doesn't make a lot of reads yet, but I've seen when he has made 4 reads, just look around and just, like, take off running because there's nobody open. There is nothing he can do with this ball. So he's got to get somebody that gets separation and get downfield.
Yeah, this is a tough situation for me with Washington at 14. I love Josh Allen off the edge as a 34 defense, but you've already got Ryan Anderson for depth. You're grooming him to replace your second-round pick who's in a contract here, and you got Kerrigan. You could get Josh Allen for depth and add the best player on the board, but I think Devin Bush at 14 is actually a more appropriate option when you consider your 2 starting inside linebackers are both in contract years, and he's the second-best player on the board, and he fits more of a need than Allen. They're both top 10 picks. They're both steals at 14, but I just feel like Devin Bush, like with San Francisco, better scheme fit, so we're going Devin Bush at 14, and we're keeping it short, sweet, to the point.
And who's at 15 if you're going to keep it short and sweet?
There's a coin flip between the Packers and the Browns, but because the Browns traded Kaiser to the Packers, I'm screwing your Browns over to avoid getting killed by Lisa. It's like if the Browns are going to trade Kaiser to Green Bay, the Browns deserve to lose the coin flip to Kaiser.
You just want the Browns pick because I have somebody for the Browns.
You want to play a game of
I know it's somebody who's not going to go to the Packers.
You want to swap picks here. Packers pick at 15, but I'll pick for Green Bay, and you'll pick for the Browns at 16. Then we'll go back to odd, even. I'll let you pick for the Browns at 16.
Go ahead.
Okay, so number 15 pick.
Go ahead and pick for the Packers.
Okay, Josh Allen, you bring his best player on the board, 34 outside linebacker. Clay Matthews is in a contract here, and if you don't want to move on, if you don't want to re-sign Clay Matthews, you can cut ties with him. You can move on from him. I think that would be a mistake, but if Clay Matthews keeps getting roughing the passer penalties, the Packers may end up moving on from him just to save cap space. And if Josh Allen's the best player on the board with this pick and he fills a need, you take him and you hope he's half as good as Clay Matthews. You pray he's half the player Clay Matthews is, because he's not going to be what Clay Matthews is right out of the gate. But you pray he pans out because he's been very good for Kentucky this year. He's twice the prospect Bud Dupree was, but Bud Dupree still got picked in the first round. He's twice the man Bud Dupree was, so he deserves to go this high. But you pray to the gods of Odin and the people who invented cheese that he's the man Clay Matthews is. I could have given Chase Winovich, who has the same hair as Clay Matthews, but he's not as high on the board. And you don't pass on someone as skilled as Josh Allen in Kentucky at 15 if he's the only top 10 player on your board. And he's just a good fit for Green Bay. So that's my reasoning. I made Lisa happy, and the Browns are up at 16. And you got your pick of the litter with a bunch of defensive tackles on the board. So I know you're going to have fun with this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You know which way I'm going with this, but you don't know the player. And I'm going to give you the player right here. 350 pounds, mountain of a man, great quickness, physical freak as far as weight to athletic.
You already gave away the player you're going to pick, but I'm going to let you finish.
Clemson defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence.
Yep, I knew it. I knew that's who you were going to pick, but I tried to.
You put him beside Ogunjobi has developed into a very decent pass rusher. And he's getting better. He's got 3 sacks this year. He's got a ton of QB pressures. Even when he doesn't get a tackle, everybody's like, where'd Ogunjobi go? Where'd Ogunjobi go? He was right in the face of the quarterback. You can ask Joe Flacco where Ogunjobi was, because Ogunjobi was getting quarterback hit. If he didn't get tackled, he didn't get to the sack. He was laying the wood. He was getting the pressure. So Logan Jones turned into a very good pass rusher, getting a lot of pressure. Lawrence, he's got a quick first step. He's a quick player. He's big. He can help with that run defense and apply pressure when need be. He is a great compliment for Ogunjobi. He's going to take up a lot of room, and you can imagine that Brown defense, if they are a better run defensive team, as well as what they're doing against the pass this year. You can imagine how that would go over.
Yeah, and the Vikings have their pick of the litter between Alabama's 2 defensive tackles, the top 2 players on my board, Raquan Davis and Isaiah Buggs at 17. So instead of consulting Nick Saban like a professional scout or a head coach, I'm going to do something that will upset Nick Saban more than anyone else in the media by deciding who to draft simply based off a coin flip. Because this is the most notorious way to upset Nick Saban. Raquan Davis and Isaiah Buggs are both first-round defensive tackles. They both deserve to be off the board right now. But I can't decide which one's more awesome. So I'm going to flip a coin and piss off Nick Saban. Heads, it's Raquan Davis. Tails, it's Isaiah Buggs. It is heads. So Raquan Davis, best player on my board, is a Viking. Dilly Dilly. That was a pretty epic way to decide the Vikings' fate. But we're moving on to number 18. Steelers are on the clock now, and you've got Isaiah Buggs, you've got Trevon Diggs, Stephon Diggs' little brother, to boost their cornerback play. You've got Khalil Hodge, who I think is a perfect fit for Pittsburgh because he can cover, he does everything well on tape, he checks out all the boxes, and he gives you that void that Ryan Shazier left. He fills that void. Even though he's a small school kid from Buffalo, 77 tackles in 6 games, he covers well. You cannot ignore that if you're Pittsburgh and you're out of the playoff picture and you have an opportunity to draft this man. You can't ignore that. I know Steelers fans, oh, we're replacing Shazier with a linebacker out of Buffalo. We're screwed. That's going to be their reaction, but it's a way better pick than Terrell frickin' Edmonds. Sorry, but you really crap the bed with Edmonds. And Hodge can't be any worse than Edmonds. I'm sorry, Pittsburgh, but.
Well, this is something this is a difficult pick because anybody who's seen the Steelers this year knows that this does not look like a Steelers team that has been around. Like, we're used to seeing. There's a chance that they finish last in the NFC or in the AFC North because the Browns. There's a chance they win 7, 8 games.
Yeah, I know the fact that Bryce Love isn't on our draft game does make me cringe to a degree.
I mean, yeah,
because you wanted to draft him to replace Le'Veon Bell. But he's not on the board. We didn't put him on the top 50. He struggled a lot this year. He's been inconsistent to the point where Mark looks like a genius for telling us to move him down on board. So his senior season's been that disappointing. But he does check out the boxes tape-wise. And it's a tough pick for Pittsburgh, honestly. To be completely honest, this is a tough situation for Pittsburgh. But I still feel like Hodge is the best player that fills a need. But honestly, I think we should just take Hodge. I'll let you pick for 19 and 20, and then we'll go back to the odd even order. So I'm going to give Pittsburgh Hodge.
Okay.
And I'll let you pick for 19 and 20. And Jacksonville, Miami are both on the clock, and that makes you happy because you get to pick for the Jaguars.
Jacksonville is a team that they need a few things. Let's face it. They've got some injuries on the offensive line, so they'll be fine there long term. I think that right now, Blake Bortles has been better this year, but Blake Bortles is still wildly inconsistent. So I'm looking at best player on the board for the Jags. Best player on the board I can find right now is, because there's still some great players on the board. You can I mean, you and I will agree with that. But I'd say a guy, I've had a love-hate relationship with this guy for a while. But with Dante Fowler's future, I mean, I love Fowler. There have been a few questions that I've heard rumblings on whether the Jags will be able to resign him coming forward, and that is an issue. Got to get some insurance. You may be able to, re-sign him, and this is a non-issue. But this early, until I hear more, I have to have some type of insurance there to keep this defense elite. So I'm going to go with Clelin Ferrell, defensive end Clemson.
I didn't add him to the draft game, unfortunately, so I'm just going to give the...
You just add him to the draft game.
We'll put him at 51 and we'll tweak the board. We'll add him. He's the very first player we're going to add, okay? We fucked up that badly. This is the first board, the rough draft. We fucked up that badly, so we're making a bold, permanent marker. Add Clelin Ferrell, motherfucker. No. Like, we're putting this in permanent marker. That's how badly we fucked up. Good. We're taking responsibility. You're proud, but you're still disappointed.
Last year. How did you miss that? Geez.
Like, his tape was just his motor. His motor was off. It was inconsistent on tape. There are people that thought Ferrell had a second-round grade. I loved his tape last year, too, but I went back, I rewatched it. His motor was a little bit out there. So I can't fault people if they don't think he's a first-round pick.
Like I said, he was inconsistent.
At the same time, he is the best edge not named Joey Bosa.
Player, but at the same time, you can see the flashes.
Yeah, you can. I'll give you that. You can see the flashes, and I do agree that he's the best edge not named Bosa. I agree. Not named Bosa, not named Josh Allen. He's the top edge. So I do agree with that.
Okay, so now that he's not there because you missed it, I'm going to put this squarely on your shoulders.
It is entirely on my shoulders. You want me to actually add him to the board right now while you're doing this? Because I'll multitask, and I'll actually add him to the board so that when our show is over, the fans will have a reason not to throw pitchforks at us or at me. Because this is on me. You do not deserve a pitchfork for this screw-up. For a screw-up this bad, I have to take the pitchfork for you, Joey. That's just the nature of the beast.
Thank you. If you take it for me, it'll keep me from pulling you in front of me as the pitchfork's coming. So, thank you. It keeps me from putting forth the effort. Who is the next team? I know you said them, but...
The Dolphins.
Dolphins.
Thank you for forgetting the Dolphins front office like they're inept front office. Thank you. Good job. Go on.
Well, it was less of that than me being so flabbergasted that you didn't have Clelin Ferrell, Clemson defensive end, on your draft board. But we'll go with it. So there is a player.
Wait, who did you give the Jaguars that wasn't Ferrell? I'm just going to give them the best player on the board and get to Miami due to time constraints. Ferrell's not a... You know what? You're just giving the Jaguars Ferrell. You really don't care at this point. Let's go to Miami's pick.
This is something that I think the Dolphins need. It may not be the most popular pick. It may be something that makes you scratch your head a little bit. But I think the Dolphins' offensive tackles, I think you've got a couple of them that can probably play guard. Be successful guards. So I'm gonna give him an offensive tackle. I want to give him Greg Little. Offensive tackle Ole Miss.
I love how we're replacing Juwan James with Greg Little. because Greg Little was Laramie Tunsil's successor. And while I don't like Greg Little as a left tackle, I do love Greg Little as a right tackle, because Tony Mario told me that Greg Little played right tackle in high school, and they just rushed him into the blindside role, but he plays like a right tackle. He run blocks like a right tackle. He has the footwork of a right tackle. He played right tackle in high school. He hasn't played like a left tackle in college, but you put him in Miami to replace Juwan James. I love the scheme fit. I don't know if that's the route the Dolphins will go, but it's a great route because both you have two Ole Miss bookends for Tannehill.
And something I think both of us said when he was drafted, Juwan James was either a right tackle or somebody who could move into guard. I still think James should move into guard. If you move James into guard, Tannehill's a big guy, tall guy. He needs a little bit more protection inside.
Plus, if you move James into guard, your offensive line looks like this. Tunsil at left tackle, Sitton at left guard, Kilgore at center. You move James to right guard, and then you have your right tackle, Greg Little. That's your upgrade offensive line with your two interior linemen who are on IR back at full health for Tannehill next season, which is a formidable offensive line. Maybe formidable enough to get Miami back to the playoffs if you're patient with Adam Gase and Tannehill stays healthy. Not something you can bank on, but there's a maybe.
Yeah, you want that big, tough inside and outside. You get on the right side. Now all of a sudden your running game looks pretty good. Your passing game has protection. Tannehill has, if nothing else, Tannehill has a big arm. Gets you guys downfield. See what happens when he doesn't have a pass rush. See what happens when he has a rushing game. If nothing else, he could beat Joe Flacco. Not too shabby. Chris, you got 21.
Yeah. Like 21, the 21's on the board here. And Greg Little was another player that we're going to have to add to the board, but we're just going to click on Diggs for purposes, Diggs at corner. But yeah, 21's on the board. The best player, not named Diggs, not from Alabama, is Wisconsin right guard Bo Benchuel. But you got Ali Marpet. You got you didn't address right guard in free agency, I guess. I mean, you did move your center to right guard, and you signed a Ravens center. It was a backup and made him a starter. But I also feel like Bo Benchuel's just an awesome scheme fit for Tampa Bay. Like if he's there at 21, you take him, you pair him with Ali Marpet at guard, and you got some good center depth. You still need some offensive tackles. But this offensive line is with Ali Marpet and Benchuel at guard. This guard tandem is decent enough to make Ronald Jones look like Wendell Smallwood or some proven, reliable, serviceable number 2 running back. If you have Benchuel and Marpet as your guard, you can make Ronald Jones look like a Darren Sproles. He's not going to be starting running back, but with those 2 guards, you can make him look like Sproles or some elusive number 2 complimentary running back. Not a starter, but you can make him look like a very good complimentary back with that guard tandem. Your protection, your pass pro is still going to be an issue, but with that guard tandem of Ali Marpet and Bo Benchuel, left guard and right guard, you can actually make Ronald Jones go from a scrub having a terrible rookie year to a serviceable running back. And when I say serviceable, I mean Darren Sproles. I mean high-end number 2 running back, not a number 1 back you draft in fantasy, but a high-end number 2 back. And you need to do that if you're Tampa. Your offense has that many holes. Your offensive line has that many holes. Your offensive line is like a bunch of crab legs with holes in it that Winston wants to steal. That's how bad your offensive line is. That's how porous your unit is for Winston. And you can't have an offensive line that porous. So Benchuel's going to Tampa at 21. But I'm gonna let you pick for the Ravens at 22 and the Chargers at 23 before I give the Panthers at 24, because I just screwed the Panthers out of a first-round guard to replace Andrew Norwell. I feel ashamed about that.
Okay, this is an interesting thing because I know who I want to give them, but it doesn't really make as much sense at this point to do so. So I'm going to have to look and I'm going to see. It's like, Krell Suggs is 37. It's like, this guy is just, you could say ageless, you know, he's still playing at a high level. It's like, it's something that is rarely seen, but at the same time, sooner or later, this guy's going to retire. He got nothing behind him. Nothing. So, in that vein, I'm going to say that the Ravens end up taking a pass rusher. And I'm going to say that pass rusher is Zach Allen, Boston College.
Yeah, it's like Zach Allen, we have to add him, we have to add Little, we have to add Farrell the board. We just organize this board 1 through 50, and it's at the point where you're going to support Grace if she shaves my head off. You're like, you're going to give her a gold star for shaving my head off because we didn't add Zach Allen. Zach Allen's good. He showed a lot of promise next to Harold Landry. He's someone who belongs in this board. Like, that's another thing we got to go back and do. And I'm taking responsibility for that. Like, I've already got the Farrell photo uploaded.
I'll hold you down for her.
So you're basically going to be her accomplice. Just if she's actually going to get a barber clippers and shave my head off, you're going to be her accomplice and help her achieve that goal. And I think it's at the point where Walter Cherepinski would join in too, because he called me pube head. Like, if someone's in my company is going to shave my head off, Walter's going to help out too, or he's going to videotape it. He's not going to.
Well, Chris, let's put it this way. It's better that Grace and Lisa kick your ass than it is for them to kick mine.
Yeah, that's true, because I'm the leader, and if they're kicking my ass, it means I'm doing a shitty job, and they're making sure I don't do a shitty job. That's what remarkable employees do.
If they're kicking your ass, it means they're not kicking my ass.
I'm trying to say that a leader has to let his employees canonize him when they fuck up. That's what a real leader does. That's what I'm trying to say. But you just want to see me suffer. Like, you take pleasure in watching me suffer, and you feed off of that. So you're going to go on the attack when you get the opportunity.
It's from all those years of you bragging about the Patriots. Like, they won one Super Bowl in 15 years, and you're like, they're the greatest dynasty in history. They won one Super Bowl from 2004 to 2016. Like, Chris, dude, just channel it down. It was 11 years in between Super Bowls. So now it's like I just, revenge is, that you just piss off a bunch of women, and I get to sit back and watch. As a Browns fan, it's nice to see somebody else suffer.
Yes, I can see why that is. And you picked for the Ravens, right? Or were you picking for who do you want the Ravens to? Oh, you put Zach Allen. So 23 is the Chargers, I believe.
I don't know. I'm not looking at the draft game.
All right. Yeah, it's like I understand. It's like I've struck out so many times that you're going on your own board because the board we've created has lost any credibility that it had in your eyes. Like we've struck out that many times today. We've swung and missed that many times during the MLB playoffs that you're going on your own board because you're just that.
No, it's actually more like I just can't find the draft game online. So
I've got a link to it. I've even made it mobile friendly. So, and there's no ads in the draft game. There's no ads in the draft game. I don't know if there's a virus or not on the cell phone, but there wasn't on my phone when I added the draft game because that's what I do. I clutter the mock drafts with pop-up ads, but I make the draft game completely ad-free like The Athletic, and I tell people our draft game doesn't charge money like The Athletic. We're better than The Athletic, and I do that just to piss off The Athletic, to get people to come to our site. It's like
I don't even know who The Athletic is.
The Athletic is this famous sports website. They do no pop-up ads, but they charge people $5.99 like the LA Times, like New Yorker, and they get Ken Rosenthal. They get former ESPN employees to write for them. They lured Dane Brugler away. They're a startup. But I think their business philosophy is so lame that I'm savagely taking shots at them by getting people to come to our draft game.
They're so famous, I have no clue who they are. So, go on. Who's your next pick?
All right. The Chargers are up, and you don't want to pick for the Chargers, so I'm going to give him Dalton Risner, Kansas State offensive lineman. He can play guard, tackle, or center. So he goes to the Chargers, and the Panthers get screwed out of Dalton Risner. So that leaves the Panthers with Montez Sweat, and they get him to replace Thomas Davis, which is fitting because Montez Sweat has excellent production on tape, but he struggled on tape versus Risner, and Montez Sweat can either replace Thomas Davis or Julius Peppers. Doesn't matter how you use him off the edge. He can replace that player, and that's just an excellent pick for Carolina at number 24. So New Orleans, no, the Eagles are on the clock at 25, so unfortunately you do not get to destroy the Patriots here. You don't get to destroy the Patriots, but you do get to pick for the Eagles.
For the Eagles, there are some really good players left available here. I like their offensive line, and the best player on my board is an offensive lineman, an offensive guard, actually. So I can't do that. But with them, I'm going to go and do something really weird. For New Orleans, I'm going to go in a direction that is going to flabbergast the world. I am going to go with, and I'm going to give you Drew Brees' eventual replacement. North Carolina State quarterback Ryan Finley.
Ryan Finley of North Carolina State. That is a for the Eagles. Ryan Finley, is that what?
Oh, I thought you were talking about. Oh, fuck! I was thinking you said New Orleans.
No, like New Orleans got. What my friend did on Friday when we did the draft game for fun, they said, you know what? There's nobody on the board worth taking with the Eagles at 25, so I'm going to trade a 21st and 2019 second just to have the Saints trade up. Like they threw in a plot twist just to throw me off, and that's what I was reading off of.
This is what happens when you start. This is what happens when you start talking in the middle of me saying something. You name another team, and I just go off straight into that. So
I put you in draft inception, basically. I put you in NFL draft inception by throwing you off, and that's not cool. To put you in NFL draft inception.
It's not cool. It's not cool. Like I had this huge fucking thing going, and I just blew it all out of the water. So for the Eagles, because there's not much there. So I'm going to give them the best, second best one on the board, but the best one on the board is an offensive guard. They're pretty good at offensive guard. And so Devon Coney, Notre Dame. Yeah, he is fundamentally sound, knows where he needs to be, very good defensively. Fits the Peterson type mold when it comes to a player. Very mental in how he does things. Does everything right. So let's go Devon Coney, Notre Dame linebacker.
Yeah, Notre Dame, another good player. So the Patriots are on the board here, and I get
have an invisible girlfriend.
the Patriots. They're not trading. They're not taking an asterisk or a kiss the rings hashtag or anything you'd like them to take or invisible girlfriend. They're not trading this pick for Manti Te'o's fake girlfriend either. I know that would be the ultimate plot twist. Have the Patriots trade their pick for Manti Te'o's catfish girlfriend. That would be such an awesome plot twist. Or trade a pick for Manti Te'o and his fake girlfriend. Like, if you were the Patriots, you would do that right now because that just sounds like such an enticing option. But I'm not going to allow you to do that, and I'm going to make a smart decision. I'm going to draft a tackle that I like more than Isaiah Wynn. And I know I'm going to piss off some Patriots fans here, but Isaiah Wynn suffered the same domino effect injury that Tony Garcia did. And I feel like Wynn's a better right tackle or a guard than he is a left tackle. And I feel like Aaron Monteiro out of Boston College is the best left tackle not named Jonah Williams. And he's a pure left tackle, too. Like, this guy really did well on tape last year. He's done more of the same this year. And I know Grace was a huge fan of him, too. So I'm going Aaron Monteiro. And Brady gets a blind side. They can either move Wynn to guard or right tackle and get more out of him. And it just works better for the Patriots. So Aaron Monteiro strengthens their offensive line, and it gives them one more year to make a Super Bowl run if they don't make Super Bowl 53. Maybe they can win Super Bowl 54, and that's ironic because my dad had a restaurant named 54th Street. So the Patriots deserve to win Super Bowl 54. For my dad, even though he's not a Patriots fan, they have to win for my dad from beyond the grave because my dad failed at 54th Street. So they have to win Super Bowl 54, and I'm just that bitter with the Indians losing the playoffs that I'm going to make the Patriots win Super Bowl 54 as well as 53. I'm that bitter, and it's not good quality, but I'm going to take the best player on board.
I'm running out of time, and you're ranting about the Patriots.
All right, the Titans are on the board, 26. Go. Jeffrey Simmons is the player my friend picked, but if you don't...
Titans, I'm going with the best player on the board. I've got offensive guard, Ben Powers, Oklahoma. Powerhouse in the running game. Just a huge blocker. Just blows through everybody, blocking for Baker Mayfield the last couple of years. So we're going to go with Ben Powers, the big man inside on the most prolific offense in the nation over the past 2 years.
And one thing I've learned from this episode is say less, do more. What that means is if a player's not on your board, don't mention it on the podcast. Add that player to the board after the show and click on a player that is the best on your board and don't pick that player by challenging yourself. That is what I've learned from today's podcast. And we're going to get to the Raiders. We're just going to give the Raiders Michael Dieter, the Wisconsin left tackle. He can play left. No, I'm not going to do that. The Raiders haven't. They invested too many offensive linemen, so we'll go a different route. We'll go. We're going to go Cameron Bynum, the cornerback out of California that I'm a huge fan of. He's the third best corner on my board, but he's Cal's best corner since Nnamdi Asomugha. And the Raiders did draft Nnamdi, and they do need cornerback help, so they deserve Cam Bynum. That's with the Bears pick here. They did get this pick from the Bears. So they get Cameron Bynum with the Khalil Mack pick. And I know Raiders fans aren't happy about that, but tough tomatoes. So the Bengals are on the board at 29. Or wait, no, the Packers are on the board with the Saints pick at 29. Never mind. So the Packers are on the board. What do you want to do?
I'm going to go with the 6'1", 230-pound A.J. Brown, wide receiver, Ole Miss.
That's a good pick, and I do have him on the top 50, so you don't need to, completely waterboard me, but he's a good player. He belonged in the top 40, and he's definitely a first, second-round pick, definitely a good player. He could get pushed up. So that means the Bengals are on the board, and I'm going to give the Bengals at number 30. I'm looking at the board here. I like Michael Dieter for the Bengals because he can play all 5 positions in the O-line, and he's flexible. He's someone you can put in center if Billy Price gets injured. You can kick him inside to guard as well. You can also put him at right tackle to complement Corey Glenn. Corey Glenn gets injured, you can move him to left tackle because he is the left tackle on Wisconsin. So he's a guy who can play all 5 positions. He probably works better as a guard or a center, but he is flexible enough to be a sub-starter at left tackle if Glenn goes down. He's also capable of playing right tackle right out of the gate. So there's a lot of places you can put him. He could bust like Robert Gallery, but because of the versatility, he's someone you can plug inside if he doesn't pan out as a tackle. So because of his flexibility, I feel like Green Bay, or not Green Bay, but Cincinnati actually takes him. So they get offensive line help, and that leaves the Chiefs and the Rams. Your final pick for the Chiefs, and then my final pick for the Rams, and then we are calling it a show. I don't think we have time for picks this week. With what you got to do with how extensive this show was, I just don't think you've got time to make picks. I can still make them, but I just don't think you've got the time to make them. So I'm adapting on the fly.
Yeah. With the Chiefs, I am torn a little bit. I've got like 3 players that I would like to give them, all 3 equally deserving. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at what we have, and I'm going to say I'm going to go with the injured player that we just can't get enough of. Guy we liked earlier in the year, guy we liked last year. And that is Rashawn Gary. Chris?
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
I didn't hear that. What was it? Please repeat the question.
Rashawn Gary, defensive lineman.
I already took him at number 6. He's off the board.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, the Falcons.
I thought you said you didn't want to take him because he was injured.
I ended up taking him though. I ended up taking him just to make Lisa happy.
Oh.
Like, because I knew.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
That's a good reason.
Because if he's missing games with injuries and Lisa's pissed about the NFC Championship from 2 years ago, that's a completely valid reason to screw the Falcons over, especially if Brady Jarrett's in a contract year 2.
Yeah, that works. But I'll go with the next one I was looking at, DeAndre Thompson, safety, Alabama.
That guy is a first rounder on Walter's board. I know he's a safety for Alabama, but I haven't heard of him. Like, if he's actually that good, I got to check out his tape.
Yeah,
like,
he's rangy. He can get all over the field, and I think he is at this point more potential of what he will be able to do than what he can do right now. But in this spot, it's like a guy who can potentially be a playmaker like that. You've got to take him.
Yeah, and basically the safety class has been underwhelming, to say the least. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a safety that's not in the top 50, but at the same time, it's like Javon Hagan wasn't ready to take that next step. Jaquan Johnson missed some time with injuries. Taylor Rapp's still taking bad angles in coverage, but the media's overhyping him. This is an Alabama safety. You know Alabama's got a great track record with safeties, and while this guy's raw, Alabama's track record usually with safeties is better than people think it is. So it's like, we'll just push him up the board. Someone is going to get overdrafted at this position.
And at number 31, you are in the Super Bowl. So, I mean, who better to take that shot? One more, Chris.
One more. It is the Rams. They are on the clock, and I kind of want to give the Rams. You know what? I'm just going to give them David Edwards. I know they extended Rob Havenstein, but Rob Havenstein is so bad that he makes David Edwards look like a top 10 pick, and the Rams extended him. Plus, Whitworth is older, so they don't have to rush Edwards in the lineup. And I feel like if Edwards was competing against Havenstein for the left tackle job when Whitworth retired, Edwards would actually win that competition. So it's not that Rob Havenstein is good. It's just he's so overpaid. I can draft this Wisconsin tackle and still make this overpaid tackle look like crap. And he's the best player on my board. And since we're in a hurry, I just need to pick him. So I'm going to pick him, and that'll do it for our NFL draft game. Thank you guys for joining us. You can go to draftutopia.com or listen to Thursday's episode where Orrin and I broke down the picks. We didn't break down every single game in depth like we usually do, but we broke down the top 5 games. And Orrin and I had a lot of synergy on Thursday. Like, it was a good show, and it sounded extremely professional, and there were less zingy pop culture references, but we knocked it out of the park with pop culture references, but a little too many for my liking or yours or for Lisa's for that matter. So we're going to have to knock it out of the park with a professional show next week, but we still did a pretty professional job, and we delivered pop culture references in spades. So on that note, good job, Joey. I know you need to get ready for Walmart, so we're going to end the Google Hangout as well as the podcast since you cooperated, even after my screw-ups. That's your reward for today. You've earned that.